Hi, it's Jess Otero again, teaching you about PowerExcel Personal. Today, we're going to pick up on where we were with our creating a database and a model. And we're going to first off create a cube formula. So cube formulas are very powerful and they spread all the way across your database, as opposed to an Excel formula, which really just controls what's in your spreadsheet. So in order to edit your cube and add a formula, we're going to click on our sales cube and select edit cube. And we're going to get some facts about your cube. We're going to click on formulas. And here we're going to go ahead and write a cube formula. In order to create a formula or start a formula, I'm going to click this formula button. And I'm going to choose from I want to choose from the accounts dimension, the gross margin, because the formula that I'd like to create is to calculate the gross margin. So on the left-hand side of this equation, we use the curly brackets in the formula and we're indicating gross margin here. On the right-hand side of the formula, we use a square bracket, and we're going to select what will create the gross margin calculation, which is gross profit divided by, and then again, we're going to divide it by sales. Counts and sales. I'm going to end it here. Now you could end your calculation here. We want to turn it into a percentage, so I'm just going to multiply by 100 so that it displays as a percent. And to close out the formula, we'll use a semicolon to tell the engine that's the end of the formula. So from here, we're going to save. And now once we start populating our database with numbers in Excel, we'll see that calculations start to work for us. So let's go ahead and check that out. Okay, so here we are. I've jumped over to PowerExcel, which is an add-in inside of Excel. And this is the PowerExcel ribbon, gives you a ton of options. And what we'll do in order to see the database that we created is we'll select New, and it's going to pull up our PowerExcel on the right-hand side. In order to tap into that database that we just created, I'm going to jump over here and select New. And on the right-hand side, you'll see this looks like a pivot table, and it acts a lot like a pivot table. This PowerExcel bar will show up, and it will allow you to connect to the database. And as soon as I choose my database and my cube, it's going to give me some default ways of laying this out. And here we have the default slice. And there's a lot of flexibility. You can change this view. This is just how it comes out of the box. If you're following along, this is what you're going to get. I have added the setting to color code the values. So all values in blue are aggregates in the database from the hierarchy. And in green, you have also aggregates or calculated values that are running from the formula. So we had previously created a gross margin formula, and that's why you see basically gross margin. So in order to start populating this with data, we have to get down to the detail numbers, because what we're looking at here is actually all aggregates. We're seeing all regions and all versions. So in order to change that, I'm going to double click on this all, and it's going to give me a dialog box for selecting what I'm going to view in the slice. So I'll just choose Canada. Then I will choose from our versions actual. I'm going to say actual, and this little button will clear what's here and put my selection. So you'll see that becomes actual, and then I hit the green check. And now I'm looking and I see I have some black zeros here, and that means that I can populate these values. So let's just say in Canada, our actual sales were 400, 500, 600. Let's just do that first section. And in order to send these numbers to the database, I'm going to hit F9. And once I do that, you see a whole bunch of numbers are populating based on the hierarchy and based on our formula. So it's not realistic because we haven't added any cost of sales yet. So I'm going to go ahead and add cost of sales. Let's say that was 200. Let's say cost of sales is 200 across the board. And I'm going to commit that to the database by hitting F9. And then you'll see that we have calculated our gross margin percent based on all of that, based on the sales and the cost of sales. And you also see that it's calculating our gross profit. So that weighted number of the cost of sales is coming into this Excel spreadsheet without a single Excel formula happening. Also, it's aggregating for, the total for the year. And you see that the quarter here has populated. Since we only entered data for one quarter, we've started to see Q1 populate. And as we go through the year, the rest of it will populate as well. So something very cool and important to us at Paris is that we utilize Excel and we add to it only, and we don't take away from any of the features that Excel has. So I want to show you how we can do some formatting here in order to keep these decimal points. Maybe you don't want to see the decimal points, and you can move them. Oops. So maybe you want no decimal points, maybe you only want two. I'm going to go no because I like a nice clean look. And you can also adjust how this is flowing through. So if you would like to take a look at how, okay, so let's say that you would like to change the order of these things or adjust which things that you're actually looking at. So if you would like to make a change, there's a couple ways to bring your sidebar back. You can use this button at the top, or you can click this OLAP pivot table, or either of these member buttons. So let's just click into this, and we've got our sidebar. And now I'd like to make some changes to how the months are viewing here. I'd like to see my quarters at the end of each quarter. So I'm going to just double click here, and you can easily adjust how this is showing. Just bring Q1 up here, and I'm going to do the same with the other quarters. And I don't really want to see the all at the top. I'm just going to remove that member by hitting delete. And when I this and I hit update, you now see that you've got all those changes that I just made. And maybe you'd like to bold the quarters so that you can see the aggregates. And we're going to go ahead and fill in the rest of this year so that you can see how the data populates so well. 400. And I feel like it's important to note here that most people that we end up working with are doing this on a more enterprise level, and they typically are pulling all this data from their ERP system or similar. It's an import or it's a dynamic connection. So what I'm doing here is not super typical, but it is instructive. We have a ton of videos on spreading methods and things like that, where you see how this is actually done and not really what I'm doing now, but it's very helpful to just see how easily one can build a super powerful model. So once I've entered these, I'm going to do an F9. And now all of a sudden, we have a lot of data here showing us our gross margin calculated by a formula. We have our net income, and we haven't yet done our operating expenses, but here we have a good example of how we have flexibility in Excel and a lot of power with database-wide formulas. So let's complete this little example by adding in some operating expense. We'll just put in a nice clean 100 here across the board. And then we'll hit F9 at the end, and we'll see how this rounds things out. So we'll 9. And now we have this all complete. So in order to show you how this can be super cool, I'm going to change this so that we're looking at not Canada actuals, but we'll swap to the United States. And this one will be blank, like Canada was when we first came in. And I just want to quickly add some data. So I want to actually move these aggregates out of my way. So we're going to go to the month, and I'll say, don't need this or that, this or this or that. And now I have lots of flexibility. So in order to be nice and quick, I'm going to go ahead and put 600 across the board for this. And then I'm going to say cost of sales, 50. And I'll say operating expense, also 50. And then when I hit F9, you'll see this all populate. And even though I haven't chosen to view those aggregates, those are populating in the background of the database. So if we go over here again, and we check out our parent in the hierarchy, North America. Let's put our aggregates back in. We'll get a chance to see all of that has been rolled up into this. So you can see all the numbers are blue because they're all being aggregated, the combination of what we've added into the United States and Canada. So it doesn't include Mexico, but I think you get the idea. Thank you so much for checking this out. And there's so much more to learn about this. And please check out our YouTube channel to go onto some deep dives and see some really cool models.